I am with Jenny Lynn Anderson, who has written the book Room 939, 15 Minutes of Horror, 20 Years of Healing. In this book, you go through quite a trauma. It's a true story about finding yourself in a really bad spot. Why don't we just quickly give a synopsis to people who would think about reading the book?
Okay. Well, the book is a story, chronicles the traumatic event that happened in my life in 1990. I was traveling on a business trip. I was public relations director of a hospital, and I was attending a convention and trade show in downtown Atlanta. I was in a downtown Atlanta hotel in an inside corridor, and I got attacked. I got captured by a man, got robbed at knife point, held hostage in my hotel room, and I was robbed at knife point and sexually assaulted.
And then, so this, as these things happen, not all of that story, I mean, even if you get the story out, the story doesn't go away from you. It sits with you in lots of bad ways. So time has passed between what happened there and you deciding to come out and write this book and tell the story. First, I guess, what gets you to thinking that? What gets you to think, this has to be a book, not just me telling as many people as I can over coffee?
Yeah. It was 20 years before I found the courage to finally speak about this. It was not as though I was ashamed of this occurrence. I was in the place where I was supposed to be. I was exiting a hotel room, going to a business meeting actually to pitch a story idea to an editor. So this was never about shame, although it is for a lot of victims and survivors. But for me, it was more like I didn't want to be labeled a sexual assault statistic, and I didn't want this label around me my whole life. And so therefore, I sort of took cues from society, and I chose to stay quiet about it. But I finally, about a year and a half ago, there were some things that happened in my life. Actually, it was some post-traumatic stress that was still going on in my life that really, reared its ugly head one more time, as it had almost every day of my life since 1990. And that, coupled with my editor, Rick Mandy, sitting down with me one day. At that time, he wasn't my editor, but we talked about my career and where I was going in life. And he just said simply, "Jenny Lynn, I always thought you had a greater story to tell." And when he said it, Chris, I knew. It took me a day or two, but he said it in a way, and I thought, what is he talking about? And then I was like, oh, it's that story. And once I started writing it, it was just like a spigot, and it just flowed out of me. And it was very cathartic, and it's just been such a long journey. But since I released the book in November, oh my gosh, it's just been a powerful journey. And it's getting stronger every day.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Talk a little bit about what the differences and the changes are. I met you shortly before it was all going to come out. We had a chance to meet in the hallway, and it was clearly that you had a great deal of passion for the story and wanted it to talk, but that was long before it really hit the streets and got into people's hands. So time has passed. Now what's it like?
Yeah, 6 months have passed, and here I am. And I'm still feeling my way through this thing called a healing journey. And I'm 22 years into this, but I'm learning things every day, Chris. I am more, I think the most important thing is that I'm telling my story. I've spoken 43 times since December, and I go out at least about 10 times, 8 to 10 times a month to tell the story. And what's happening is this: people hear me opening up about this and telling people how hard it's been and how I hit it. And then what it does is it gives them license to come to me and say, "Jenny Lynn, you are not going to believe this, but this happened to me also." And Chris, these are women and men who have kept it tight for 20 and 30 years, but somehow by me just speaking it, it allows them to say, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to tell you the truth too. This happened to me." And you know what it is, Chris? It's like what I'm figuring out is this. With breast cancer awareness, and we think of breast cancer survivors, and you hear that word survivors. Well, with sexual assault and rape, we don't do that here in our society. We keep me, a victim. And so I think what we've got to do is there's got to be this paradigm shift where, okay, yes, I am a victim, but at some point in time, you got to become a survivor. And I did survive this. And the ones of us out here who've gone through these traumatic events, we're here and we need to speak about it and we need to move forward. And like the breast cancer survivors, oh yeah, they wear these, bracelets, and they're proud, and they bond together and they band together and they link together and they empower each other to be called survivors. And so I think part of our job is that other survivors have to speak up and encourage all of us to somehow band together, link together, and then we'll have that power to go to that next step, which is what? What is the next step? Well, I have some thoughts on that. It's like it's starting to crystallize. First, we have to all talk about it and speak about it as a group, which isn't happening still in our society. I can be in a group, I can speak to other survivors, and I'll say, does anybody really ever want to talk about this? And most women who've talked to me about this particular situation, they'll say, Jenny Lynn, nobody ever wants to even talk about this. They just clam up when they hear I was raped. And so we get these cues from society, but you know what? I can sit here and say, yes, I was raped, I was sexually assaulted, but look at me. I survived it. I can move forward. My life does not have to be stuck like it was for so many years. And so then once we get together as a group, which we aren't there together as a group yet, one day, and this is the big one, we're going to have to get to the point where we're not out like tonight, Chris. I'm going to speak to about 100 women about, I'm going to speak about how to be safe as you're traveling as a woman. Well, at some point in time, we're going to have to shift this, and it's that we're going to have to go out and we're going to have to not prevent this among women, but we're going to have to go out and teach men how to tell other men that they have got to be the ones who protect us. This is a man issue, but we keep it, though, in this realm of women issues. Isn't that going to be difficult?
Well, that's an interesting perspective. Can you sort of lighten that one up just a little bit? You're saying that I get that men are the attacker. You want other men to do what?
Well, I went and spoke to a group of college students at Valdosta State University 2 weeks ago. I had 400 university students out on their front plaza, and I used a rubber band as an analogy. I got 300 girls to get together in this cluster, and then I got all of these young men to form a link around them. And then I got each young man to say to the person beside them, I will never allow one of us to hurt these girls. Because you know what, Chris? A lot of these attacks are happening on college campuses. Most people who get sexually assaulted, they're under the age of 30. So you see young men are date raping young women. Young men and older men are hurting women. So we've got to somehow have this shift in society where we've got to start at an early age with young boys and little boys who grow up respecting women, learning that you don't do this to a woman. You don't do this to girls. It's a huge job, but that's not even, I can't even go there yet, but I'm starting here. And I'm one woman who's written a book about my experience, but I'm going to go there one day. I'm 48 years old, and I've been asleep for about 20 years. But you know what? I'm awake now. And I'm going to first gather as many survivors as I can. And I'm already getting them. They're going with me to other group meetings, and I'm taking them with me. And I'm saying, you know what? If this has happened to you, you don't have to be ashamed about it. You've got to be courageous enough to say, it happened to me, and then move forward. And then when we get a good, huge group of us one day, then we'll take this ball and roll with it, and we'll try to do something with our society about young men and young boys. Does this make sense to you?
I follow. Jenny Lynn Anderson, the book is Room 939. So if people want to get that, you can find that online. It's on Amazon and all those sorts of places, as well as if people want to kind of have the longer conversation with you, where do they start? Where's your best spot to be found on the web?
My website's JennyLynnAnderson.com, and I write a blog. And I'm really passionate. My background's in public relations. Chris, I see the power of PR in this. I'm just a one-woman show. I've got an editor, Rick Mandes. I've got a couple part-time people who help me. But the thing is, in the last 5 months, I just continue to get in front of larger and larger groups. And that little, the little sphere that I'm in, it just continues to get a little larger. And the last time I went out, I went to Rome, Georgia. I'm getting some calls from some other cities now. And, I love to tell this story. It's a hard story to listen to.
Right.
I try to do it in such a way where I don't want to make it depressing. I want people to say, hey, that woman made it through this. I've had hardship in my life. Maybe I could make it through this. Mm-hmm. And it's not all about sexual assault and rape. It's just about hurts in life. And you know what, Chris? There's just a lot of people hurting, and they don't know how to get through it. And neither did I. I went for 20 long years doing all the wrong things. Mm-hmm. And so I've got several speeches I make to groups, and I just tell them what the steps were that I took that finally got me to the point where I could remove these shackles from me. Because I had this man with me for 20 years, and I had been dragging him like a ball and chain, and I was tired of it. It is so exhausting to carry this burden with you. But you know what? I tell people it used to feel like a big, huge bowling ball. And you know what it feels like now? A little cotton puff. But I'm still dragging it. And some days it might be wet some days because, it's a healing journey, Chris.
Sure.
Just because I wrote this book doesn't mean that, I'm just, fine. I'm perfectly fine. None of us are. No. But you know what? I'm a lot better than I was 2 years ago. I'm a heck of a lot better than I was 20 years ago. And It's just step by step. Mm-hmm. But going forward, thank goodness.
Thank goodness. The book is Room 939, 15 Minutes of Horror, 20 Years of Healing. This is Jenny Lynn Anderson. Go see more at JennyLynnAnderson.com. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Chris. And I hope one day to talk to you about the QR codes in my book. I'm really excited about how they inspire the reader. I don't think that they've been used in an inspirational book so far, and I want to come back one day and talk to you about these QR codes.
Yeah, we'll get into the technology of it next time, I think. Thanks, Jenny Lynn.
Thank you, Chris.